Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I hope all of you will be doing fine and all of your family members will be enjoying good health too. Um, in our today's discussion, I would like to continue with the previous discussion which we had in the last lecture. That was about some of the theorists who have written extensively on the geopolitics and theories which we discuss, which has been discussed for many years and still are being discussed today. So we would carry on with that discussion, and in this lecture we will try to sum up the discussion about various theorists who have given or who have shared some ideas about the geopolitics. So without wasting further time, we will start having our discussion with the rest of the theorists about geopolitics. So, first of all, today we will talk about the Nicholas Spikesman, and he is the one who has given the theory of Rimland. He has actually expanded on the hypothesis given by Harold J. Mackinder about heartland theory, and the thesis which he presents in his theory of Rimland is quite contrary to the heartland theory given by Harold J. Mackinder. So, according to him, the economically states, economically, politically, and militarily, the northern half of the world would always be more important than the southern half, and the location of the state, north or south of the equator, would play a large part in determining the significance of the state. So when we talk about the classification of the entire globe, the north is usually taken as the developed part of the world in every single way, and south is considered the poor and developing world. So the location, according to Nicholas Spikesman, the location of the state north or south of the equator would also play a determining role in the significance of the state. So by that we can say that the states which are situated in the northern part of the equator are supposed to be economically, politically, and militarily more strong, and they are supposed to be more powerful than the countries situated in the south part of the equator. So and according to him, not only the land power which is very much significant or valuable, rather the sea power equally is very important. So according to him, both land power and sea power are quite important and significant. And as I just mentioned that he expanded his theory from the heartland theory of Mackinder. So he is of the opinion that the real potential of the Eurasia lies in the inner crescent, and when we look at the map, we came to know that inner crescent are the areas or the countries that surrounds the pivot area or the heartland area. So and most of these countries are like coastal countries, and that raise the significance of the sea power, that by having superiority in sea power, the land power which is situated in the heartland area can be encircled and can be encapsulated and can be contained in that very region. So, according to him, the real potential of Eurasian land or Eurasian continent is in the inner crescent rather than in the heartland. So, the his he presented his theory of rimland, and that is comprised of Western Europe, Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Far East. So these regions have been focused in his rimland theory, and rimland was accessible to the sea and to interior regions. So the rimland region which has been specified by Nicholas Spikesman, they have access to the seas. As I mentioned earlier, that these are the countries which have access to the seas or which have coastal areas and to the interior regions as well. So, according to Spikesman, he presented his thesis of Rimland in the following words, that who rules the Rimland rules Eurasia, who rules Eurasia controls the destinies of the world. And it is quite contrary to the hypothesis which was given by Harold J. Mackinder, and he said that he who rules the heartland rules the world island, and he rules the world island controls the destinies of the world. And contrary to that, he says that he who rules the rimland rules Eurasia, and who rules Eurasia, which is another terminology, or which is equal to the world island which was presented by Mackinder in his thesis. So his theory is quite contrary to the Mackinder's heartland theory. Now we will have a look at the map in which the inner crescent has been so when we look at the map of the Spikesman Rimland, here New World and Heartland Y for Nicholas Spikesman Rimland area. So we can look at the Spikesman Rimland areas. So here the dark black is the Heartland area, and the areas around the Heartland, we can see that this is marked as the Spikesman Rimland, and these states or these countries have access to the seas as well. So according to him, he who rules the rimland area controls the Eurasia, and who rules Eurasia, over which heartland is the pivot area, will ultimately control the destinies of the world or the entire world. And this new world is, as we just mentioned here, that the theory he has presented, like the when we look at the north part of the equator, most of the countries lie over there, are militarily, economically, and technology wise they are superior than the countries situated in the southern part of the world. So both the Mackinder and the Heartland theories are quite opposite to each other, and the Spikesman Rimland theory has been heavily emphasized by the American policymakers, and it has been incorporated uh, significantly in the US foreign policy, because heartland is the area which is under the dire control of at that time Soviet Union. So in order to contain the Soviet Union or communism, they emphasize they carry on with the Spike-Spell theory of remnant to encircle communism in the Eurasian continent or the heartland, which was comprised of that time Soviet Union. Now we will move further and we will talk about A.P. Swirsky. He is known as the propounder of the air power, and he has presented his thesis about the air power. So we before that we have discussed the land power and sea power. The land power theory was given by Harold J. Mackinder, and the sea power Mahan is known as the pioneer of the sea power theory, and A. P. Swirsky has written extensively on the air power, and according to him air power has made the land battles obsolete, and air power has risen to superiority in the international system, and according to him whoever controls the skies would be the world power. So who will have strong air force would eventually be the superpower of the world. And in his thesis, when he presented his thesis, both the US and the Soviet Union, they were far superior in air power as compared to the rest of the states of the world. And he further states that an area of intersection was the area of decision. So whoever controlled this area would be dominant actually. So this is the brief overview of the ideas which were given by A.P. Swirsky about the air power. And as I just mentioned earlier, that we would just try to have a brief overview of the some of the theorists who have written extensively about the various dimensions of geopolitics. So if we will have some further time in this semester, we would try to talk about this very theory extensively, but now we will move further and talk about the Emmanuel Wallerstein's world system theory. World system theory actually posits that there is a world economic system in which some countries benefit more while others are simply exploited. And Wallerstein developed the world system theory and its three levels of hierarchy. These are known as core, periphery, and semi-periphery. So first of all, we will try to explain these three levels of hierarchy, and then we will move further with this discussion of world system theory. So core countries are dominant capitalist countries that exploit peripheral countries for labor and raw materials. So core countries are in fact the advanced capitalist countries that prey upon the peripheral countries to and exploit them through labor and raw materials. So we can say that core countries are the US. We can take the example of US and Soviet Union. In those times, those were the developed, not the Soviet Union, because he was propagating the philosophy of communism, which is against the capitalist ideology. So the US and Great Britain, these were the These were the core countries, and they pry upon the peripheral countries for labor and raw materials. And here we can see that core countries are advanced areas or countries, the states with strong state structures and national culture, and further economic powers connected by trade and technology, and exploiters of the periphery. So these are the characteristics of the core areas or core countries. Now we will talk about the peripheral countries. Peripheral countries are dependent on the core countries, as we just mentioned earlier, for capital, and have underdeveloped industry. So peripheral countries are so the core countries exploit the peripheral countries for labor and raw materials, and peripheral countries on the other hand are dependent on the core countries for capital, and in order to run the affairs of their economy they are dependent on capital which is acquired from the core countries. So when we talk further about the characteristics of periphery, they are comprised of weak states, or they are weak states. They are dependent on the core, and the colonial states or states with low degree of autonomy are the examples of the peripheral states. So many countries, when we look at the history of colonization, we came to know that most of the Asian countries and the African countries, they were colonized by the colonizers such as the Great Britain and France, Belgium. So these countries, these colonial states, are known as peripheries because these colonial states have been exploited for labor and raw material by the core, in the which is in that case is the colonial colonizers such as the Great Britain and France, Belgium, etc. Now we will talk about the semi-periphery. Semi-periphery countries share the characteristics of both the core and the peripheral countries. And when we talk about the characteristics of semi-peripheral countries further, they act as a buffer between the core and periphery, and emerging they are emerging somewhat, but still dependent on the periphery. So they can be considered as emerging countries, but still they are dependent on the core countries. So world system theory like dependency theory suggests that wealthy countries benefit from other countries and exploit those countries' citizens. In contrast to dependency theory, however, this model recognizes the minimal benefits that are enjoyed by the low status countries in the world system. The theory originated with sociologist Emmanuel Wallerstein, who suggests that the way a country is integrated into a capitalist world system determines how economic development takes place in that country. So this is the map of the world, on which the core, semi-periphery, periphery, and others have been identified by Wallerstein. So when we look at the green shaded areas, the blue shaded areas in this map, we can see the North America, the Canada, the United States of America, the European countries such as Britain, France, Germany, and the Japan and the Australia and New Zealand. These are the core areas, or these are the core countries which has been marked with blue color in this world map. And when we talk about the semi-periphery, these are marked with purple color, and the areas in the African continent, not I mean in the Latin American countries, half of these countries are mentioned termed here as semi-periphery, and China is also specified as semi-periphery here, India as well, and some other countries. So, and the periphery is marked with the red color. So some of the North American, so South American states are peripheral states, and when we look at the map of the African continent, it is entirely marked with red color, except a little part which is a semi-periphery, and the whole heartland region, the capitalist countries, so sorry, the Russia and other Central Asian republics, even Pakistan, they, because Pakistan remained a colony of the British, so it would be definitely included in the periphery. So these are all the states around the world which are identified on the world map as periphery, semi-periphery, and core by Wallerstein, just to highlight the areas of periphery, semi-periphery, and core. In this next map, which shows the top 10 most powerful countries of that time, we can see in this map the United States ranks the number one in that list. Then the Russian Federation, third comes China, France, UK, Japan, India, Germany, Pakistan, and Brazil. So at that time, even Pakistan was ranked in the top 10 most powerful countries when the Wallerstein presented his thesis. So, and this world system, this classification of most powerful countries has been made on the basis of the world system theory, which states that the capitalist countries that pry upon the weaker countries or periphery states, they are considered the most strong and powerful countries. So this is the uh, so this world system theory given by Wallerstein still enjoys some relevance today, and it is considered a great contribution in geopolitics, in theories of geopolitics. So that is all about our today's discussion, and in our next lecture we will start with another topic of another concept of international relations. So if you have any queries about our today's discussion, please feel free to write your queries to me, and I would try to answer your queries in the best possible way. And I would remind all of you once more that you all are advised to send me the topics of your research assignment, especially those people who haven't sent me the topics for their research assignment. And as I mentioned earlier that your exams are about to start, so I advise all of you to prepare well for your final term examination. So wish you all the best, stay safe and healthy, see you next week inshallah. Allah Hafiz.